Hello and welcome to Hot Topic. I'm Hugh Richards. This time I'm talking to parliamentary candidates for Cleethorpes and Immingham, Roy Horrobin for the Liberal Democrats, Peter Keith for Labour and Stephen Harness for UKIP. We did invite the sitting Member of Parliament, Conservative Martin Vickers, but he's busy elsewhere, and besides he probably gets enough time on this programme anyway. My thanks to those who did come on though. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Okay, thank you.
I want to start off, Roy, talking for the Liberal Democrats.
Yep.
The Liberal Democrats have not had a particularly successful history in this part of the world. What is it that you're offering to the people of Immingham and Cleethorpes that the other candidates can't give you?
Well, I am local to the area, but I think the other candidates would claim that as well. I think that what the Liberal Democrats occupy is a middle ground, that ability to balance the books, but also to understand the position of people. Also with renewables, which is the big thing, but we need other big things. The Liberal Democrats think what we've got to offer is that understanding of Europe. We are, unlike Peter's party, which is divided on the issue, we're united on the issue. And I think now this area can really benefit from that connection with Europe.
Peter, your party has had more success. It lost Cleethorpes and Immingham, the Labour Party lost Cleethorpes and Immingham last time round, and you must be optimistic of getting back in. What is it that Labour particularly can do for Cleethorpes and Immingham?
What Labour wants to do for the people of this area is give them back the hope. Over the last 5 years, we have had austerity for the sake of austerity. We have seen people not getting pay rises, or losing their jobs, or not getting enough hours in this area. And what we want to do is we want to give people the opportunities to be the best they can be.
Could I challenge on that?
Of course.
Because I do actually think that in the last 4 or 5 years it is quite noticeable that hope in this area has been developing. And I think, I think of the docks and the North Wall there, and of how, it was a porter cabin. And now Dong, Centrica, Siemens have come into the area, and there's been a real emerging push. Don't get me wrong, things need to move further, we need to increase employment further. But I'm not sure that picture's accurate for the Cleethorpes, Immingham, Grimsby, etc. area.
Well, what I would suggest, Roy, is you need to go out and talk to the voters, as I do, because the simple feedback I'm getting is that in this area we have higher than average unemployment, we have lower than average wages, and that people can't get enough hours. People are having to juggle between how many hours they do and how much time they have for childcare. People are angry, people are frustrated. They know that we can do better than this, and that's what Labour wants to give them the opportunity to do. Can
I just pick you up on that phrase you used there a moment ago? Austerity for the sake of austerity. Why on earth are there people in London thinking let's make the people on the Humberside dance? It's amusing. Austerity for the sake of austerity. Why? How's that a motive?
Well, that's a very much a rhetorical question, I believe, Hugh. The reason why the government has chosen its economic path, to me, I have an economics background. I work in business. I struggle to be able to justify why the government has chosen to take money out of the economy. What we need is, any basic economics course will tell you that if you invest, you will generate more wealth, and that wealth will then be spread across the community.
Peter, so forgive me, we'll come back to the economy in a moment, and that's a national issue. I just want to keep it a little bit more local at first. Stephen, you haven't had a chance yet.
Very interesting.
It's good. I mean, your party's definitive policy is very clear, but apart from the European issue, what is it that your party can bring specifically to this constituency?
Well, I think it's a difficult one to answer, because obviously you want to divorce European Union from.
Well, I want to come and talk about that separately later.
Yeah, okay, yeah. But I think the issue is that, and one of the reasons why people are looking at UKIP. One thing is that we are a party of change. We're an alternative to the three parties, basically. But people are beginning to realise one of the reasons why this area. I was born in Grimsby. My father was a trawler skipper. I've lived and worked in this area all my life, and although I have travelled, I don't think I'd have ever wanted to live anywhere else. And I think people are beginning to realise that a part of this decline is down to the European Union. So we are giving this alternative. My background is engineering, manufacturing. I've seen the manufacturing come to the South Bank, and I've seen that start to decline. One of the saddest pieces of news we've had this last week is we've lost half an oil refinery. It's how we reverse that decline.
Well,
it's quite possible that renewables will do it.
We'll mention the renewable energy sector as being something that's going to be important here. I think we're all hoping that's the redemption of the local economy here. Peter, is that not a repetition of the danger of relying on one industry, one economy, and if we turn to that, then we're just as vulnerable to renewable energy as we were vulnerable to the removal of fishing, for instance?
Well, everyone here will welcome jobs coming into the area, and the renewables are going to bring thousands of jobs into the area. The money that those jobs will bring more jobs in other sectors, whether it's going to be in retail, or whether it's going to be in housing, or whether it's going to be in whatever. The key thing is, you're quite right, we want to have a diversified economy. We want to have people having the skills, and that those skills can be applied across different types of work, and we want to encourage inward investment. One of the key things that happened last year, but was still under threat, of course, because we'll find out what happens until after the election, interestingly enough, is the Manchester to Cleethorpes rail link. If business people are flying in to Manchester and they get on the train and they can't get to the South Bank, how are they going to get here to see the opportunities? And that, forgive me, leads on to an even more important rail link, and that is the lack of rail link to London. So we need to look at investment into this area. We need to look at how we create the infrastructure to give the opportunity for that investment.
Forgive me, it sounds when you're endorsing the Northern Powerhouse and that great infrastructure project,
the Northern Powerhouse goes from Manchester or Liverpool to Hull.
Yeah,
we need the jobs here.
But you sound as if you're welcoming that development, at least in wanting it to come across the estuary. You sound as if you're almost as if you're endorsing the policies of the coalition.
Well, yeah, investment only today. There's been an announcement about well, not an announcement. It's a repetition of an announcement about £10 million coming in. Part of that is for infrastructure. The Manchester Cleethorpes battle, well, that was insane. I cannot believe anybody would think of axing that service, but that's not going to happen. A direct link to London, yes, I would fully endorse that. But things are going on. The Regional Growth Fund, Liberal Democrat ideas and money, that's coming in, and we can get more of that. And we can get more of that, I would argue, out of the EU as well.
I would endorse the direct link to London as soon as possible. There are 2 trains an hour from Leeds to London on a direct service. There are every 2 hours there's a direct service from Hull to London, and we don't have one direct service to London. I don't know why we've missed out on this. I don't know, but it's
probably a lack of campaigning, isn't it?
Way overdue.
But to get to and just to get back to the renewable energy sector, your party, Steve, has been quite hesitant and reluctant to accept the value of renewable energy at all.
I think without a shadow of a doubt, our party would not have signed the Climate Change Act. I mean, that's pretty definite. The Climate Change Act went through Parliament. There was only 3 politicians against it. So realistically, the deal has been done.
What is your party's objection to the Climate Change Act?
I don't know whether it's the party's objection, but I've done my own sort of research, etc. And I think when you take into account the Climate Change Act, you've got to read the HM Government's Pathways Analysis, which actually brings the Climate Change Act into life, and it explains what is going to happen to the UK economy by the year 2050. And what we're talking about is almost a decarbonisation of the UK economy. And then it goes on to explain that the actual peak electrical demand will increase from 60 gigawatts to 120 gigawatts because we're going to have electric cars, electric vans, electric heating, and this sort of thing. So I think we're going to an area that is quite dangerous. I say my background is oil refinery. I'm worried that we'll lose the 2 oil refineries.
Roy, go ahead.
It is the UK. I've got this right, haven't I? The UKIP position is that you think climate change is the claims by scientists are greatly exaggerated about climate change.
Well, I think the jury is out on climate change. My own personal position, and I think I'm allowed to have a position on this,
of course,
is that I'm not a scientist, so I think it's probably a good idea to limit CO2 liberation. I think that's a good idea.
Whereas, see, my angle would be, sorry,
Go-
97% of scientists are saying,
but
and
we
I'm
have-
not a scientist
but
either,
there
but
is
they
a-
know what they're talking
But there is,
about, don't they?
there is another issue here, which
Yeah.
is that the largest emitter of carbon would be the Chinese economy, at something like 25% of emissions globally. The Chinese do not have to do anything about their carbon reduction until the year 2030, which is
Well,
Do you have
if I may, I'll
which is in the future. So,
since-
I just wonder why,
since
as
no
an
green-
economy, we have to wear a hair shirt for the rest of the world.
Since no Green candidate is here, just to finish this point before the
Mm.
break, it's not a matter of the pollution so much. The necessity for other forms of energy is because the oil's running out. There,
Yeah.
there isn't going to be any other sort of fuel.
Well, yeah.
We'll come back, Roy.
I don't, no, sorry. You say the oil's running out.
Yes,
Well,
it's a finite
that is
resource,
a
not that it's a
possibility.
dirty resource.
We've got a situation at the moment where a barrel of oil is
Yeah.
Yes, but
50,
it won't be
60,
that won't be the
50,
case in
60.
60 years' time.
Possibly. There are fantastic reserves. There are fantastic reserves of
We'll come back to the
oil.
environment after
A
the
shame
break,
oil,
but we
yeah.
must stop now.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Please come back after the break when I'll still be joined by the candidates of Cleethorpes and Immingham. Welcome back to Hot Topic. I'm talking to the candidates for Cleethorpes and Immingham. We were just speaking about the environment in the absence of a Green Party candidate here. Peter, could you just explain a little bit further the Labour Party environmental policy?
Labour's view is very simple. We follow the science. The science says that global warming is a threat to our national security, to our way of life. We have seen in this area over the last few years increased levels of flooding. We have seen damage to people's property, to people's businesses. We need to have a policy that protects us, our families, our homes, our community.
And Roy?
Yeah, well, I was going to say that this seems a great opportunity for our area in that I'm very worried about climate change. I also follow the science. I'd go along with that. We need to do something. We need to act quite drastically, and we can be a world leader. This region can be a world leader with renewables technology. We can do further research and create further jobs. We can research into solar, into tidal, and we can really push this forward and move the area forward, but also be national and world leaders.
Can I
Cleethorpes.
add that the renewable sector is going to happen? I mean, UKIP can't stop it. I can't stop it.
No, but
I would point out one thing. If CO2 is your enemy, then unfortunately you have to embrace nuclear power, because it probably is the only energy form we've got at this present moment that will not liberate CO2. They are installing 8.5 gigawatts of small diesel generation at this present moment in time to back up wind turbines. So obviously diesel is a fossil fuel.
Nuclear power is, France has been dependent on nuclear power for many years now. What do the other parties think of nuclear power? I think the Green Party itself, and I don't wish to speak for them, is looking on it with more favour than they have in the past.
It's not a question of what we think about it. This is embraced in the Climate Change Act, in the pathways analysis, that we will build nuclear power stations.
And would the Liberals go along with that?
Well, nuclear power is, of course, a danger, you know, Fukushima and all the rest of it. And the big problem with Chernobyl, of course, was that they didn't follow the correct safety procedures. And then it's the problem with waste with nuclear power that really, really concerns me.
It frightens me.
But there is an issue about power, and there's nuclear fusion as well.
There are alternatives.
And the Labour Party nuclear power, Peter?
Well, Stephen's hit on a really interesting point, and something I actually agree with him on, and that is energy production. And that is that we need to invest in our energy production. Now, of course, the Humber has the potential to be the energy estuary, but we have to also look at the fact Cleethorpes constituency has got, I believe it's 5 different power stations, if we look at the smaller ones, as well as the 2 oil refineries. We need to have an energy mix. The fact that we have been relying on electricity imports from France is an indictment of our energy policy. So we do need to look at the energy mix. I'm not an engineer. My background is economics. Therefore, I wouldn't be able to say, oh, we're going to use X over Y. What we do clearly need is, like we're talking about the industry and the jobs in this area, it needs to be a mix, it needs to be a balance.
I don't think anybody would argue with that, though, would they? I mean,
That's what I'm...
The only thing is we're saying that, but unfortunately, the Climate Change Act and the pathways analysis takes us in a different direction, which is nuclear power and wind turbines.
Forgive me. I think we've done our duty by any absent Green candidates by discussing these issues, and I think from several points of view, we should probably discuss Europe. It's the best thing that's ever happened to this country, Steve, isn't it? Our entry into the economic union of Europe. Thank God for it. We'd all be surviving on escargot and foie gras were it not for. Why not Europe, Steve?
Well, I certainly wouldn't be sat here if the issue of Europe wasn't a topic. I actually joined a political party because of the European Union. I joined the political party, which obviously was UKIP, because I became concerned about the lack of democracy. We had Labour Party signed 3 treaties, Conservatives signed 3 treaties, and this has transferred the sovereignty of the UK to Brussels, basically.
Well, should we just talk about that nature of sovereignty first? I mean, the Labour Party, Peter, doesn't want to come out of Europe. Why do you disagree so strongly with Steve? Why is Europe something that you treasure?
Well, Europe provides us with opportunities to do business and to create wealth. As we're on the eastern seaboard, not the western seaboard of the United Kingdom, we look naturally eastwards in terms of our trade. The trading links between the Humber and Germany and Scandinavia and the Netherlands are very, very strong and very, very long. So we want to maintain those links. The single biggest change that was made within the European Union was done by Margaret Thatcher, and that was the single European market. Now that has meant that those that are inside are able to dictate the rules for those who are outside.
Well,
but I do want to add one point, which I believe Stephen will be pleased for me to make, and that is, while I strongly believe that Europe is our future, that Europe is important to our wealth creation, I also believe that if the people of this country are trusted to choose who is in the next government, the people of this country should be trusted about the future of Europe.
So you're advocating referendum?
I am, and I'd go further than that, and I'd say that at the moment we have a situation which is highly destructive. We're doing the hokey-cokey. One leg in, one leg out. It's not good for business. It's not good for jobs. We need to have this dealt with once and for all.
Forgive me, Peter, is this position consistent with your party's leadership?
The leader of the party doesn't agree with me, but he's one voice, and many, many voices in the party disagree with him. If you remember, Labour has changed its policy over Europe.
How many of you would say that the leaders of your parties are but one voice and shouldn't necessarily be listened to?
Are they listening?
Oh, I would definitely say that we should not automatically listen to our leaders. That's the whole tenet of democracy.
I think there's an element of we can have a view along.
Do you want me?
Right. On Europe, yes, please.
My viewpoint is, I mean, I'm only thinking of the Six Nations rugby tournament which I'm watching, and I'm sat there watching England play, and I'm not celebrating it as a sort of pan-European, oh, I wish everybody could win type of thing. Europe does not compromise my English identity. That's very strong. I don't think it actually compromises sovereignty. I'm in favour of devolving our power. I'd like it to go further. But I'd come back to what Pete said. I would agree with that. That we need to be. We need a structure and a framework in which to trade and to do business.
Yeah, there are some technical issues there, and we must come on.
There probably are. Can I finish my answer?
Steve, sorry. Do let Roy just finish. Just finish his point, and then we'll come on to your technicalities.
Yeah, and there are technicalities. So therefore, I'd like to point that out. Europe for me, it is not. actually a strong emotional attachment. It's a practical thing. I think we need to be, and we need to negotiate. And it's and this is almost getting a cliche now. I keep hearing this from people. The best way to negotiate is by being actually in the club, not stood outside.
Steve.
Well, nobody's managed.
And also, just to build my case stronger, we were both at a debate on
Okay,
Monday, an interesting debate.
that's a lot of points now, Roy. Steve.
Okay.
There are some technical issues there. One is that all the rules and regulations are not made by the European Union. A lot of standards come into the European Union. These are supernatural. There are standards on motor vehicles and all
Supernatural?
Well, they come from a global organisation.
Okay.
They come into the European Union. The European Union adopt it as legislation law. So it's not everything is decided in Brussels. And the point about we spoke about Switzerland and we spoke about Norway. They are members of the EEA and EFTA. I think Switzerland probably has its own bilateral agreement, but they also input into this legislation process. Let's not think that it's.
Can I
have no say whatsoever.
Can I just ask a couple of questions that get much more at the heart? And Roy mentioned the emotional and the intellectual relationships with Europe, and I think we've all experienced recently experienced with Scotland and the United Kingdom, Britain and Europe. You said that we've sacrificed our sovereignty to Brussels. In your original answer. Now, we all sacrifice our liberty, our autonomy in some way in order to be governed. We sacrifice it to a sovereign parliament in Westminster, and that's why we don't have a sort of war against all in a Hobbesian sense. We sacrifice liberty to government. Who cares if you sacrifice that liberty to Westminster or to Brussels or to Timbuktu? Yeah, it's still the same relationship between government and governing.
Yeah, the issue is that directives and regulations are produced by faceless, unaccountable bureaucrats in Brussels. They come to Westminster and they cannot be rejected. In a lot of instances, they are gold-plated, unfortunately. So this is legislation that hasn't come through a democratic process. We have MEPs, Parliament in Brussels, but it is not as Westminster.
Well, it's a democratically elected parliament, just doesn't have much power, the European Parliament. Were the democratic institutions of Brussels to be much more powerful, were you to regard the Union as a democratic governance, would you wish to stay in it? It
would be an interesting concept.
Well,
to have so many MEPs all trying to...
We may indulge in a little speculative thinking here. We are, after all, statesmen.
We're talking of a possibity, but I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think there's a cat in our church.
Peter.
Steve, I beg your pardon, Steve. It's a very simple question. One of the reasons why I would like the referendum is to have clarity and to have a decision.
That's all we have time for this hot topic. Please join me for the next election special. Until then, goodbye.